Cops of Reddit, what is the most what the F happened here moment you've experienced? EMT, but I got to jump in on this one. We responded to a call at a Motel 6 near Washington DC. We get to the room, and there's a skinny guy in tighty white ties at the door screaming incoherently. We go inside the room and see what he's pointing at, a dude about 300 pounds, but naked, covered in baby oil, that was completely unresponsive on a tarp. We try to get him on the stretcher, but he keeps sliding off. We use the sheets and even curtains to try to get the oil off him, to no avail. We eventually have to call the fire department to help us get him up, and even when we get him on the stretcher, he slides right off. Eventually, we get him strapped in and take him to the hospital. He passed away without ever regaining consciousness. Apparently what happened was this married father of 3 flew to DC to meet his internet boyfriend. One of their kinks was a dude taking Ambien and letting the other guy face bang him. Doctors suspect that the Ambien caused his epiglottis to relax and baby oil got into his lungs, where it blocked his alveolar. I'm still curious how notifying the family went on that one. Former cop was a rookie deputy and got this call that a man got his foot caught in a garden tiller and was bleeding profusely. It was a 20-minute drive running code, so I had time to plan out my actions. I figured the ambulance would be about 10 minutes behind me, so I was gonna tourniquet above the knee and I assumed he'd be unconscious and or needing CPR. I get there, and it's a big ass farm building with 2 guys just standing there smoking. I grabbed my medic bag, not a medic, but it had tourniquet, C-collars, gauze, etc. I run towards them to ask where the patient was, and they were white as a ghost just smoking, while pointing behind them. I went inside, and behind a big John Deere tractor was a huge PTO-driven tiller about 7 feet wide and 3 feet tall. There was my victim, with his back against the tractor tire. His left leg was sucked in the tiller and wrapped twice around it with the sole of the shoe next to his face and toe pointing towards the left. His femur shot out underneath the tiller and was beautifully white with no blood. He looked up at me and said, "Can you help me?" Now keep in mind, I'm 21, thought this was a garden tiller and assumed I'd be able to do something, but I was completely out of my element. 2 ambulances, the rural fire department extrication team, a welding company to cut the machine apart on scene, a helicopter and a surgeon that came to amputate on scene. Later he was free. Late to the party, but my favorite so far has got to be the tale of the UFO/aliens. I was a cop on the res for a while and had my fair share of crazes. One night, I'm out driving around and I get a call from dispatch. There's a UFO out in one of the farmers' fields. Okay. So I get to the house and talk with the guy. We know each other. He doesn't seem to be that loony. I turn my spotlight onto said field and sure as shit, there's something not quite right there. It's metal and shit. So I go bebopping through the furrows and hoping my scariness isn't showing because this is freaky. It was an autumn night with the wind howling and clouds blowing overhead. I get closer. I have one hand on my holstered gun and the other shining my flashlight. I was rehearsing what I was going to say to our new overlords, and then my brain finally clicks as to what it actually was. A wad of those stupid Mylar balloons, all blown up and caught on some weeds. I'm talking like 20 of those bastards, just chilling and scaring the shit out of me. I grabbed them and walked back out to the farmer. He started laughing, and then I did too. I handed them over to him and got back in my squad, still shaking. The sad part was, he passes away a few years ago, and his family gave me those deflated balloons that he had kept. I have them in my basement now. I'm taking a slightly different approach in answering this question. A couple of months ago, I got a questionable activity call. It's a catch-all for anything suspicious. The caller stated she believed someone had snuck into her backyard, climbed up onto her second floor deck, and then left an imprint of their dick on her sliding door. I show up to the call about 5 minutes later, and she's mad at me because I didn't schedule an appointment to come over, and her kids saw me. She didn't want her kids to think something bad had happened. After we get past her anger towards me for showing up, she shows me the glass sliding door in question. In all fairness to the caller, there was a sizable smudge and imprint on the glass. However, the imprint looked nothing like any penis I've ever seen. In fact, the imprint looked really similar to the dead bird laying on the deck next to the door. When I pointed out the dead bird and explained my belief that no dick had been placed on her door, the caller became incredibly irate and told me she moved to our city because it was supposed to be very safe, but now she was thinking of moving away because naked people throwing dead birds at her house was more than she could handle. Realizing I would not be able to rationalize with dick bird, I left and wrote my report. Some people don't deserve to call 911. One time we got a call about a minor wreck in a highway corridor. We get there, I'm handling the accident. 100 yards down there is a car on flats. And another further down from that, unrelated to the accident, one of the drivers walked back to us and told us a sketchy guy had been stopping at these cars to offer his help in fixing the flats. The theory was that he threw something on the road to flatten the tires so that he could help and get money from the drivers. I'm stuck at the back end of this mess, on the radio trying to get another unit to detain the shady guy. All of a sudden I look over, and there's a guy in nothing but a hospital gown and an IV hanging out of his arm just tiddling along the shoulder. The nearest hospital was several miles away, so I have no idea how he covered that distance with nobody noticing. So here I'm with 1. A car wreck. 2. A guy possibly flattening tires on purpose, and 3. An escaped hospital patient, all completely unrelated, on a major highway late at night. My dad told me the one time he went to a house and a woman pulled something out of her shopping bag and started hitting him with it. He's trying to stop her, but the other officers are all laughing. Finally he realizes that she's beating him with a dildo. A friend of mine is a cop in the UK and his story is more WTF as he saw it unfold, but missed how it all started. It was his first week out on patrol, and he was assigned to an experienced partner. They respond to a burglary in progress, and are told that a nearby dog unit was on the scene already. When they arrive at the property they hear a commotion outside that's clearly between an officer and a suspect, and they open the garden gate to assist the dog unit. What they then witness is a suspect face down on the grass, an officer stamping on the suspect's back whilst holding his arm up near her hip and shouting "Stop resisting," and the police dog absolutely going to town on this guy's buttocks with his teeth. The suspect is, unsurprisingly, struggling and resisting, and then ends up kicking the dog. The dog then latches onto the guy's leg, starts ferociously tugging, pulls it off, and then runs towards the new cops on the scene with it. It turns out that was a false leg, which no one except the suspect knew at the time, and my buddy the cop said he just froze whilst trying to figure out how the hell he calls this in, and whether or not he should retrieve the man's leg from the police dog. I've never been a cop, but my dad was for several years and I've heard plenty of stories from him. The one that I think fits this thread best came from early in his career, when he was still pretty much a rookie. He and some of the other cops got called to a house to follow up on an old woman who was suspected to be dead. When they get there, they find out the woman was a big time hoarder with stuff stacked to the ceilings and paths leading to each room barely big enough for one person. While my dad is walking around taking all this in, one of the other officers suddenly puts his hand out and tells my dad to stop right where he was. Dad asked why, and the officer said, "You almost stepped on her." My dad looked down to find the old woman dead and buried under her own stuff. This one happened to my friend, first day on the job. He's driving with his partner. Normally we don't have partners, but for the first 6 months, when you start you are paired up. Also, we have community volunteers which are like unarmed, but trained individuals who assist the peace officer. So 3 people total. He's driving down a highway when he sees a man on the side of the road near an entrance to an access road for a cottage. The man is naked and covered in blood and pointing down the access road, trying to get their attention. Turn on lights and go down road. The man is signaling them, and when they pull over he just leaps into a woods and starts running alongside the road. They follow. They get to a cottage and the door is open. They turn to look at the naked man and he's gone. Vanished into the woods. There is also visibly blood all over the door and deck. Supervisor gets out, goes into the trunk, gets the shotgun, and gives it to the unarmed auxiliary saying something like, "Cover out back, and try not to shoot us, we are going in." He and my friend draw their pistols and go. When they get inside there is blood everywhere. Like from a movie. All over the walls, furniture, just everywhere. Enter the living room. There is a man on the couch with a couple knife wounds to his stomach, but is alert and seems actually not that bad, but he's holding a pit bull on a leash. If you let the dog go it's dead, says supervisor. Guy ties leash to side of couch, puts his hands up, but won't say a word. Is there anyone here? What happened? Are you okay? Nothing, he's not answering. They place him under arrest and auxiliary takes him to the car. They continue searching upstairs, clearing rooms out until they get to one of the bedrooms. They look in and there is a guy under some covers, but still obviously awake. Show me your hands. The guy hears them, throws the blanket off to reveal he is also naked, stabbed, and basically about to die from blood loss. Paramedics come. House is fully cleared out. As it turns out the three guys, including Naked Forest Man, were all drug dealers just having a get together. They started doing ecstasy, and after getting really high it turned into a bit of a gay orgy. In a moment of lucidity one of the drug dealers realized he wasn't gay and grabbed a knife, which escalated into a gay orgy knife fight, hence all the blood. That was day 1. I found 3 kids one day running next to a busy highway. The oldest was 5. We finally got them identified and figured out they lived about a mile away. We got there. They were in the care of their adult, 20, sister while their parents were on vacation for 2 weeks. The sister decided she'd rather pop Xanax and smoke weed than deal with the kids, so she locked them in their bedroom for about 10 days, occasionally sliding food and water past the door. There were piss stains on the baseboards in the bedroom from where the kids had decided their bathroom should be. Finally the 5-year-old had enough and figured out how to unlock the bedroom window and make a break for it. That's nowhere near the darkest stuff I've seen. We don't like to talk about it. That's it for today. Take care of each other.